This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Zayin Baruch Hashem. Basically, rounding out the first week of Meseches Baba Kama. We pick it up on the bottom of Vav Amid Beis, in the middle of discussing how a damager pays. The Mishnah taught us B'mitav Haaretz. What does that mean? What is the mitav? What is the best? We began yesterday with a machlokes Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yishmael held b'denizik shaiminon. Rabbi Akiva held b'demazik shaiminon. And we remind ourselves, the mazik is he that does damage. The mazik. The nizik is he that gets damaged. So we ended off yesterday in explaining Shitas Rabbi Yishmael, who said, Rabbi Yishmael, Ahani gzeira shave v'hani kra. Ahani gzeira shave k'dekayim in the hani kra kigoy. For example, the following case: De'es le mazik idias v'ziburius. The mazik has both good and bad. For simple purpose, it's called idias choice A, B, and C. So the mazik has A and C. V'edias l'nizik, and the nizik has only C. V'ziburius de mazik, the C of the mazik is lo shaveh k'idias de nizik, is not worth the idias of the nizik. Again, I am the damager. I am the mazik. And what do I have? I have idias and ziburius. I have A and C. You, the person I damage, all you have is A. But ziburius de mazik, my C, is not worth your A. So obviously everything here is in a scale. We'll call it A. That's my idias. You, the nizik, what do you have? You have idias, but your idias is a B. And then I have ziburius, which is a B minus. So the ziburius de mazik lo shaveh k'idias de nizik. In that scenario, because my ziburius is not enough, I have to pay from the best. Why? Because I'm not able to say take from ziburius al gavi mimitav. So says the Gemara of Shadi, and that which we're referring to, according to Rabbi Yishmael, what does it mean? That in a scenario where mine, the mazik, the damagers, low quality is not enough, is not equal to your, the nizik's idias, then I have to pay from the rest. Don't know why we have a gray box around me today. Why do you have a gray box around me today? Don't know. Okay, and we continue. Rabbi Akiva Omer Leiba Kasav Elik Vasanizakim in idias. Kavachimer Lehektish says Rabbi Akiva, no, all the pasuk teaches that you have to collect from idias. It does not mean necessarily from your idias. Kavachimer Lehektish. So let's now, yesterday we dealt with the basic sheet of Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara, my Kavachimer Lehektish. What did Rabbi Akiva mean that we have a Kavachimer Lehektish? Done. Litur de hektish. If you're going to tell me that pshat is that my axe, the mazik, damages hektish. I damage hektish as an ox, and my ox damage hektish is ox. The Beis Hamikdash says the Mara Sharia Machrana. You're only obligated if you damage Re'ehu, your friend, Veloy Shor de hektish, and your putter, says the Gemara right now, if you damage the ox of hektish. So what does it mean, Kal v'chaymer lehektish? If I damage hektish, I don't have to pay. Elo liyomer. The case is, Harei alai mana lebedek habayis. I say I'm going to give $100 to the Beis Hamikdash. Dasi Gizbar, in such a scenario of a shakal me idias, the Gizbar is allowed to come and take from idias. Loyeh asks the Gemara, why? Well, the Gizbar, the treasurer of the Beis Hamikdash, what is he? For all intents and purposes, asks the Gemara, he's one glorified creditor. He's collector. Asks the Gemara in the last line, that the Gizbar should be nothing more than a Baal Chayv, should be nothing more than one coming to collect the money owed. And therefore what? As we turn over to Chesam and Aleph, the Gemara explains, when it comes to a Baal Choiv, Idias Viziburius Nizakin V'idias. That when... No, that's Daf Ches, and that's a problem because we need Daf Zayin, and we don't have Daf Zayin in front of us. So we're going to have to take a pause for a moment and get Daf Zayin. Here we go. Look, hey, Ella, Baal Chayiv, and on the top line of Zayin, Amar Aleph, here it is. Who Baal Chayiv Beidanis? A Baal Chayiv collects from Beidanis. So what's going on? Why does the Gizbar collect more? Maybe Rabbi Kiva holds. Kol Baal Chayiv Nami Beidinis. Maybe Rabbi Kiva fundamentally argues on the whole din of a Baal Chayiv. Says the Gemara, no. Because you could ask, can you have a koichav and nizakin? A Baal Chayiv has a higher hand, has a good strength in damages. Taimar behektish, a higher koichav and nizakin, like we just said, that hektish is a very low hand. Shari'eyu, you don't have to even pay. So says the Gemara, Allah ilam, you know what's going on over here. Dinagar tura, didane tura de hektish. Udika kashalach. And you just asked me a moment ago, Shari'am Rachmanav lo shar shal hektish. Rav Kiva Savala, Rav Shimon ben Hasya. Deitani Rav Shimon ben Hasya, Imer shar shal hektish. Shenogach shar shal hedyet. Shar shal hektish, that damage a shar of a hedyet. Potter. The shar of hektish that damage us. Hektish is potter. Shar shal hedyet, shenogach shar shal hektish. If we damage Beis HaMikdash, Beitam ubein muad mishalim nezek shalem. What's more chamer? Hafach to what we said a moment ago. Not in every scenario if you damage hektish are you potter. No. If hektish damages, they are potter. But if we damage hektish in all scenarios, tamer muad, you have to pay nezek shalem. Says the Gemara. Okay. But if this is true, how do you know that the machlekes of Yishon and Rabbi Kiva is fundamental into whether you pay Idi Ziburi is the mazik? I'll tell you, everyone knows but and you know what they argue about. Maybe all they're arguing about is within the halachas of hektish. Says the Gemara in Cain, if that is true, my loy ba'akosov. What would the brisa mean? Void malkav chaymer lehektish. Void hamer avashi, and this is the clincher. The first two kashas, maybe we could have tried to, figure out a way out. But Rav Ashi says explicitly, Tanya Behedi, he learned explicitly in a Raisa. Meitav Sadeu, Meitav Karma, Yishalem. From here we darshan Meitav Sadeu, Shal Nizik, Meitav Karma, Shal Nizik, Devrei Rav Yishmael. Explicit. Rav Kiva Omer, Meitav Sadeu, Shal Mazik, Meitav Karma, Shal Mazik. And that is the conclusion. And we pick it up from about 14 lines to the bottom. The first word of the line is Rami. I will make mention that many people, B'siyata D'Shmaya, you see the Bikush MS, how many Yidden want to know. They reached out, we said, do we want to go faster? Should we go slower? Should we try to aid a little bit of a minute or two slower, to aid in the clarity? And everyone who reached out, so those who didn't reach out, this is your time to vote. Everyone reached out and said that extra few minutes to aid in clarity is certainly helpful. So we will try our best. On that note, continues the Gemara, about 15 lines to the bottom, at the two dots, going a little bit deeper into this din, that when one damages, he has to pay mimeitav. Rami alei Abaye l'Rava. Abaye asks the following kasha to Rava. It says in the Torah, passing that we're becoming familiar with mitzadeo meitav karma yishalem. Meitavin, midiachrini loy, sounds very clearly that meitav, you have to pay the best. V'atanya, but the Brisa says Yashiv l'Rabbi Shava Kesef, Afilu Subin. With regard to damaging its head by a bar, he pays yashiv. He has to return the money, which comes to include shaveh kesef, anything that has a value of kesef. You lose subin, even the lowest quality bran grain. So ask the Gemara, what is it? Is it meitav or is it subin? What does a damager pay? On one hand, the Torah seems to say he has to pay the best. On the other hand, the Torah seems to say he can get away with the worst. Says the Gemara, like kasha kan midaitoi kan bal karcha. An interesting answer. When he pays on his own, almost like we give him a benefit, then he pays from even the subin. But if we have to bring him to court and force him to pay, extract the land from him, then he pays from meitav, from the best. I'll bring you a raya. The pasuk says yishalem. The pasuk says the word yishalem. He should pay bal karchi. Abaya, what do you mean? Mika said yishulam. Does the pasuk say yishulam, which would mean he is to be paid, which would mean that it's against his will. Yishulam. Yishalem ksiv midaitai mashmas. It says Abaya, there's no raya from the wordage of the pasuk, as if anything it should have said Yeshulam. Elo Amar Abaye. So rather it says Abaye Kedemar. Titania that we learned in Abraisa. Harei Shayilai Batim Sadai Zukramim. Veinai Maiti Lemoichran. And he's not able to sell them. Ma'achilin Oisai Meiser Ani. So we have a unique case. We have a person. Ostensibly, he's not an ani. He owns houses, he owns fields, he owns vineyards. There's a problem. He can't find a buyer. So he owns all this stuff, but bottom line is he got no bread on the table because he has no cash. What do? We're machilin oisai. We feed him, we support him. Meiser ani ad mechsa. Until half of the value. Ad mechsa. Says the Gemara of Aviba Mar. And Mar wondered, and Mar asked, on this case, Echidami, what's the case? If all the land in the world is cheap, everyone's land fell in value, and his as well, we should feed him everything. He's a regular ani. Who cares what he owns? He can't sell it. Dazul. Everything is cheap. So why are we only giving him 50%? Asks the Gemara. We should give him in full. Says the Gemara, you're right. Excuse me. The Hazol, the Kuli Almanami. Ella, you know what the case is? The Yoiker Ara, the Kuli Alma. Everyone's fields really went up in value. Udidei, but his own did not. Why not? Why did his properties not go up in value? Says the Gemara very simply. I did the ayo v'nafik azuzi, because everyone knows that he's desperate for cash, because everyone sees him walking around trying to raise funds, so everyone knows they can take him for a ride. Everyone knows that he's desperate, and therefore zilarei, therefore his land, the value goes down. Then the question is, then wait, we shouldn't give him anything because he's not an ani, he's a regular usher. So asks the Gemara, what exactly is this case in which we have someone that owns properties and yet we're still going to support him at some level from Meiser Ani? Says the Gemara, V'amar Mar, top line of Zayin Amid Beis. V'amar Mar, lo yisricha, you know what the case is? To be Yoimei Nisan, Yakra Arasa. Says the Gemara, a fascinating case, that during Nisan, his fields went up in value. But to be Yoimei Tishrei, not his fields, all fields. Yoimei Tishrei Zalarata, the value goes down. The Kuli Alma, so everyone in the world says, 1 second. Come Nisan, the value is going to go up. Right now in the winter, in this fall, Tishrei, the value goes down. So Kuli Alma, everyone is a smart real estate broker. And they say, Natria Nisan, it was Avni, wait till Nisan and sell. But Vahai, because this guy is desperate, he has no cash, he needs money. Zavin Kidahashta, he's going to sell right now. It's on this case that the Bryce is teaching us Al Palgo Orchal Mezal. Tfei lav orchel mezal. up until half for it to fall, then he has to sell it. Tveilu urcha lemilza. That's not customary for it to fall any further. Says the Gemara, v'hachanami, and this as well, going full circle. How again? Let's remind ourselves we had a steer in Abaye. On one hand, it said meitam karma, yishalim, you pay from the best. On the other hand, it said that you could pay whatever you needed to do. So which one is it? V'hachanami, says the Gemara, gabi nizakin dinei be'edius. Really, you got to pay for the best. But v'yomar le'iu havli beinis tefeh, I want to give a little more beinis burta, then it's not a problem. Amar le'ishagel es kedina shkol kedahashta. V'yiloi shagel ki yoker delikamei, because you can tell him, you want to take the value right now. If not, take the future higher evaluation. Maskiv lo Rav Acha bar Yaakov. As Rav Acha bar Yaakov, an interesting question. You're weakening the power of damages. Eitzel beinanis, v'ziburius. Why? Derachmana Amar. What did the Torah say? Meitav. You got to pay for the best. Va'at Amrit, and you're saying beinanis v'ziburius namilai. Not even beinanis and ziburius, but he's going to be forced to pay, forced to take even something lower. So rather comes along Rav Acha bar Yaakov and he says, we can compare this case to a Baal Chayv. The Baal Chayv dina bebein is v'amar lehavli ziburis ve'porta. But let's say he says if he says havli ziburis ve'porta. Instead of giving me a little bit of betanis, give me a little bit more ziburis. That's what I want to collect with. Amar lei, take what's your day in shkol kedahash to take the valuation right now. Vilo, you want to start playing games? Shakel ki ukar del kamei, take it the higher value that will be worth later on in the spring. Maskel arvacha breder avika imkain nin alas dalvin delas b'fnei lavin. Said Rav Acha breder avika, it's a problem. No one's going to want to give loans based on what you just said. Why? Because the one who's going to give a loan is going to say, Susie, if I have cash right now, I could buy a field worth the value right now. But Hashta now, the Susie Kabach, you owe me the money. I'm forced to take the valuation of the land, what it's going to be worth later on. 8 lines from the white lines, you're right. The ksuva is isha dina b'ziburis. You pay up the ksuva with the lowest quality land. But if she says havli beinis, what's important to give me a little bit more beinis? Amar lo, we tell her isha l'skidinoch shkol kedahashta. V'lo, you don't want to take what your din is. Shakli kiyukot l'gamei. You have to take the higher value later on. Says the Gemara, mikol makon kasha. We're back to our original question. How does Abaye answer up the psukim of Meitiv Sadeu Yishalim versus the pasuk by Bar that says you could pay even from the subin? Amar Rava called Yavle Meitav Leisiv Le. Says Rava, I don't know why the lights are flashing. Says Rava, Lamaisa, you have to pay me Meitav. You have to pay the best. Says Marva, Meitav Ksadehu Kasiv. Maybe Rav or Shua, they explain meitavu. Any mealy movable items are always considered meitav. Except for levar me'ara. In such a scenario in land, then it's going to be different. That what? We force him to pay with the better land so that people will eventually want to buy that land for him. If you give him a garbage piece of land, no one's ever going to buy it from him. I will stop over here. We'll pick it up from Ba'im Minei or Shmuel Bar Abba in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.